Do you know how expensive hockey jerseys are?
Hello, Adam Ryan Donato.
Hello. Welcome back to another hard review. I'm here to talk about Inside Out 2. This is the latest sequel from Pixar. The whole gang's back. You have Phyllis Smith back as Sadness. You have Louis Black back as Anger. And you have Amy Poehler back as Joy. Now, we do not have Bill Hader back as Fear. And we do not have Mindy Kaling back as Disgust. Now, these are two ancillary, supporting characters. So I guess it's really fine. It was a thing that gave me a negative perception about the movie going into it, which is such a waste. I mean, if they didn't want to do it, fine, but if it's because you didn't want to pay them, come on. In this movie, we have Riley, who is now going through puberty, and she has to go off to hockey camp with her two best friends, and she's got to deal with all these changes and new emotions that are going on through her. So I talked about the new voice cast. I think that the new Fear, I think it's Tony Hale, and then I forgot who played Disgust, but they're fine. It's really no huge, crazy difference. It's less that I like their performances as the characters, which I do like, and it's more so that I just like those actors and actresses, and I would like to see them be compensated and valued in the way that they should be. Other new cast we had, obviously, with Maya Hawke as Anxiety, who I thought was really, really great in this. So I don't think it's a spoiler if you watch any of the trailers to know that Anxiety is kind of the antagonist of this story. She bottles up the emotions and tries to run her own show. I like this villain because it's a different kind of villain from the first one. It's also the whole it's another emotion that contrasts with Joy. Joy's having a hard time sharing the spotlight. It's less that and more so Joy has learned her arc from the first movie. That was a big problem I have with a lot of Pixar sequels. We have Cars 2, Lightning McQueen doesn't, value the Radiator Springs crew enough. Finding Dory, which is probably the most egregious example where Marlin is still being super overprotective of Nemo. But here, literally, Joy comes right out and says oh, I learned my lesson. All emotions are valuable and I see why they need to exist. Which is nice, and we do see characters who are in an opposite situation that they were in the previous film, and so they do try to change it up enough. But that being said, the majority of this movie does feel like a DLC, an extra thing that we didn't really need, but hey, it's cool if you really, really like the original. If you're a big fan of Inside Out, which I love the original, I give it 5 stars. I actually just rewatched Inside Out, the first one, and my review from about a year ago was that I think that the movie has gone down in my brain, because when I remember when I watched it in 2015, it was one of my top 5 favorite movies of that year. Obviously, I was 15, a very different point in my life, almost a decade ago, but still, everything with Bing Bong was amazing, and I love the score and the new world that we're being introduced to. It's very emotional, but it's very funny, so I was really, enamored with it. But every time I watch it more and more, and I felt the same way this time, I'm ugh, I don't even think that's top 10 Pixar at this point. It's sad, but that being said, after getting a second one, I will say that I would be open to a third one, because one of the big things I feel about the Inside Out franchise, especially after seeing a sequel, and it's a compliment that comparing it to Toy Story in a way that is better than Toy Story. Andy, I love Andy. Obviously, they're trying to accomplish different things with Andy than they're trying to accomplish with Riley. I love Andy, I relate with Andy, but he's really just a neutral mask. He doesn't have many definitive personality traits, and that's by design, so that we can cling on to that character, and then these are our toys, and that's why we care about them so much. Besides the fact that we just also really like them and are compelled by their journey. But with Riley, it's different. Her journey, she has a whole plot line. Her journey in both movies is directly tied to what's going on with the metaphorical fantasy characters in the film as well. Whereas Toy Story, Andy kind of does his own thing, and the toys do their own thing, and of course they impact each other somewhat. Andy's where's my toys? The decisions that Riley makes impact the emotions, and the decisions the emotions make impact Riley in such a direct way that feels so much more efficient. But yeah, I think the original one is way more emotionally satisfying. I think, it's obviously, I have my original bias, but, it's the first one to introduce us to this world and these characters and all these concepts that we're dealing with here. That's kind of lessened here. It's nice to see these new characters and I really like them. I think Anxiety might be the best Pixar villain that we've had in the past 5 years or so. Some years we're getting 2 Pixar movies a year, and still there's no one that I feel matches Anxiety, because I feel for Anxiety. She's a sympathetic villain, and she's also a scary villain. I see why why she is such a formidable threat. But I feel for her, and I understand her and her goal and her journey, and she's not like I said, no mustache twirling here. She's strictly just like, I'm trying to do a good thing. I love Riley. I want to help Riley, but she has a way that hinders the goals of our main characters. So she's in the way of our main characters. Our main characters need to take care of it. It's funny, but not necessarily as funny as the first one. I think it's a lateral move, funny-wise. And then the story of it just feels like, okay, we keep going. You know, it doesn't feel like as landmark of an episode in Riley's life. But it's definitely like a really relatable tale. Like, I definitely feel like I understand what it's like. It's interesting because when they make this movie, or when they announce this movie, everyone thinks, oh, okay, so we're gonna go and figure out what it's like to have puberty impact Riley, and, you know, all the things that come with that. And yeah, it's about that, but not in the same way. Like, we're not watching Big Mouth here, you know what I mean? Like, my sister said before the screening that she wishes there was like a PG-13 version, this story of Inside Out. And I'm like, well, that's just Big Mouth, because they don't talk about like boys or anything like that. There's no like, you know, her discovering her body or anything like that. It's a G, like, family, I might be PG, but it's like a family friendly film, okay? And it's not like anyone was really looking for that. But if you are looking for a concept, because we all were teenagers, I mean, if you're an adult now, you were a teenager and you went through the experience of going through puberty and how crazy that is and all the potential for like storylines and jokes that come with that, go watch Big Mouth. This is much more so about how our emotions change and get more complex. There's the short that came out right after Inside Out that was Riley's first date, right? It's with the guy and he plays the guitar and, you know, whatever the fucking dad also does, so it's like they relate or whatever. If you want to explore what it's like for Riley with boys and whatnot, watch that cute little short. But no, this is just about choosing what friend group to be in. How do you deal with your anxiety, envy, and jealousy of other people, how the emotions work together. And I really like a lot of the new concepts that they're bring to light here. Like, we have, like, Riley has beliefs and morals, and we chart that. I care so much about Riley. Going back to the Toy Story comparison with Andy, I care so much more about the specific goings-ons in Riley's life than I do with Andy. Like, Andy I love, but Riley I feel like I know so much more about, and with her personality and what she believes in, and it's easier too because we're literally inside of her head. I'm just saying that's a benefit that this movie gets from the concept being as such. The rest of the new emotions are okay. Envy, embarrassment, and ennui, which I think that might be confusing for some people. Also, she doesn't really get much to do here. She's just kind of like chilling over in the corner doing her own thing, which is fine. Embarrassment gets like a big huge laugh at one point. He's like cute and fine. I liked him. A lot of the scenes obviously involved with embarrassment made me cringe a lot. Envy is Ayo Edebiri, and I think she's really good too. She gets the second most amount of lines compared to the rest of the new emotions. I appreciate how focused this movie is. I appreciate how it is like basically all in one setting. But yeah, like I said, if you like the original, this is like a fun little extra little add-on. But if you did not like the first one, you definitely do not need to see this one. When it comes to Pixar sequels, it's better than the likes of like Cars 2 and 3. I would probably also, I don't know, Incredibles 2, I think that needed a sequel more. I think this is better than Finding Dory. I think this is better than... That's pretty much it. I like all the Toy Story sequels and even Lightyear. I know that's an unpopular opinion. I like Monsters University more, but I think it'll be a huge hit. I think there'll be a lot of people at the theater for this one. It's a very heartwarming family film. It's fun. Anyone can really enjoy this. It's relatable to anybody who has emotions. So go check out this movie Inside Out 2 at the theater. I'd give it 4 stars, 4 out of 5. I think it's a generous 4. I would never give this a 5, but I would be much closer to giving this like a 3, but it's a very good movie. It's a very enjoyable time. I sound very negative about the film, but it's just because I love the original so much. I think that it's so great. Very complicated emotions from this, but that's what you get when you make a sequel to a beloved film. You're going to have people coming in with expectations because of how they feel about that first film. So if you want the brand recognition, you want the box office of like, oh, I love joy and anger and all these characters. That's great, and you're going to see it at the box office, but you also have a much larger responsibility to make these characters, you know, act in such ways that makes sense for these characters and is faithful to their journey in the first film, and to expand the world and justify the fact of even making a sequel. No one's sitting here and being like, why make Elio? Like, no, we're excited for Elio because we're excited to see new characters and new worlds and new concepts. Thank you guys so much for watching this review. Like, comment, subscribe, and why don't you tell me what your favorite Pixar sequel is? Mine came out in the greatest year for movies of all time, the year of our Lord, 1999. Toy Story 2 is the best. I like Toy Story 3, but that ending is fucking ridiculous. And then Toy Story 4, I'm the only person who likes that.